The Court of Justice of the European Union is a unique court. It's a supranational court. It has a kind of pan-European mission and perspective, and it's based in the fairy tale-like Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. The main objective of this court is really to make sure that European Union law means more or less the same thing throughout the 27 member states of the European Union. So it is the main interpreter and also the main force that monitors application of EU law throughout the European Union. Next to this, the European Court also deals with legal disputes. These can be disputes between national governments and EU institutions. It can also be between individuals or companies or organizations and the European Union's institutions. In this way, the court is a major driver of European integration, and it has become, a bit like some of the other institutions, ever more important throughout the decades. At least since the 1960s, it has step by step built out its position, particularly through what is called case law, so specific judgments on specific cases where it actually has turned EU law in a law that has primacy. So in certain ways it's more important than national law, and it has direct effect in national member states. It's a very interesting court because it's, like many other EU institutions, very international. Its main language is French, but at the same time it is possible to bring cases to the court in any of the 24 languages, official EU languages. And so that means that there is a very important translation process going on behind the scenes of the court. The Court of Justice of the European Union actually consists of two main courts. This is also to help it dealing with the sizable caseload it has to confront. There's the Court of Justice on the one hand, and then there's the General Court on the other. The Court of Justice is composed of one judge per member state, so 27 judges. The General Court has actually two judges per member state. These judges are appointed for 6 years, which can then be renewed, and they are put forward by national governments. That doesn't mean, by the way, that these judges are supposed to be protecting or endorsing national interests. They are supposed to be neutral, autonomous, independent, impartial, and they have to pursue the objective of the correct interpretation and application of the EU law throughout the European Union. There's also an interesting and original institution of the court, which is the so-called Office of Advocate General. There are 11 of them, and these are kind of legal experts who provide, in a way, independent opinions, legal opinions, which are not binding. The court doesn't need to follow them, but most of the times they have a great impact on how the judges actually come to their judgment in specific cases. So what kind of cases does the court actually deal with? The court is responsible for hearing a wide range of cases that involve, in one way or the other, European Union law. Increasingly, in recent years and decades, there is the dimension of individual rights. One example is the right to free movement and residence of European Union citizens in other states than their original member states. And this brings into play all kinds of really complex questions with regard to, for instance, the right to family reunification or access to social benefits in the state of residence. And in some cases, member states may want to, and actually will, expel EU citizens from their territory. For instance, when these citizens have committed crimes. Another range of cases that the court deals with is really dealing with legality and illegality of European Union law. And so European Union institutions, member states, but also individuals or companies can go to the Court of Justice and ask for the annulment of specific legislation because they claim it's in contrast to EU law itself. And this may, for instance, involve individuals complaining in their process of seeking a job at the EU institutions, where they might feel discriminated, for instance, on linguistic grounds. There's a really interesting case of a Portuguese woman complaining that in the tests, the admission tests she had to do to become part of the EU institutions, in her job application process, she was in a way forced to use specific keyboards with specific layouts in languages that she wouldn't be very familiar with. And so that's the reason she didn't get the job. That was her claim. The court also deals with something that is called infringement procedure. On the request of the European Commission, the court can look into whether a member state has failed to comply with EU law, failed to fulfill its obligations. And so the court can issue a judgment which then makes formal that a country is not complying with EU law, and this can also result in pretty hefty financial penalties for the member state. To give you an example, in June 2023, the court found that Hungary didn't allow migrants to seek asylum on Hungarian territory, thereby violating EU law. Finally, the court also deals with preliminary references or preliminary rulings, which are basically questions asked by higher courts from member states, constitutional courts, supreme courts, where they ask the court to explain how EU law should be interpreted, how should EU law be implemented. And so they ensure in this way a uniform, cohesive application of EU law across all European Union member states. So it's clear that the European Court of Justice plays a major role in guarding, in interpreting, and also in the face of implementation of EU law and the European Union's treaties.